Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Author Jonathan Taylor. Yes, author. No further qualifiers necessary. I published my book this week. Several relevant links will be available in the description below. It's not available in every format I would like to, but I'm working on it. Regardless, given the excitement and preparation that was necessary to really start getting my book out there, I kind of neglected to get anything ready for a video this week. So instead, I'm going to go back to a former well I've used in the past, namely Jonathan Jenkins' Twitter account. Jonathan Jenkins is a former high school teacher and also an author in his own right, or at least aspiring author, and he uses his Twitter to just kind of ask other authors questions and kind of get to know them and get them thinking about their work. And I thought I would. I've already read out some questions and answered them in a previous video, so I thought I might as well also do this right now. You'll notice that he has a very interesting style, namely he makes a statement that is relevant to the question first and then actually asks the question. And I'll read out both, but I won't go through all of them as they come up. I'll skip around a bit. You'll see. 15 minutes on the clock, and let's go. 43 years ago, Jimmy Carter negotiates the Camp David Accords with Sadat and Begin. I assume that's how you read that. The question is, who is the peacemaker in your MC's group? Well, the default peacemaker is Martha. She is the informal leader of the group, and she takes that role very seriously, both outside of the group and inside of it. When she is the one who is involved in a conflict, then generally Victor is the one who picks up the slack. Anyway, moving forward. 81 years ago, Hitler cancels Operation Sea Lion in favor of Operation Barbarossa. What decision by your antagonist seals their eventual doom? Okay, I don't really have an answer for that. There isn't really any particular moment where the antagonist's plans change dramatically over the course of this book. I won't say they are really monolithic in that sense, but but they do stick to what they set out for the most part. 159 years ago, the Allegheny Arsenal explodes, killing almost 80 employees, most of whom were young women aiding the war effort for the Union. What does your female MC do in preparation for the big showdown? Well, I have 3 female MCs, and pretty much all the preparation they do is related to their studies. You know, they go to university. They take the courses, do the supplemental work, do the other things their curriculum requires them to do. That is kind of their preparation. That is the advantage of going to a military university. Your preparation for a showdown is what you generally do overall. Let's see. Okay, we got a quote here. This is interesting. This is a tale you'll tell your grandchildren, and mightily bored they'll be. A quote by British General Brian Horrocks. Has your MC had an ill-conceived idea? Elizabeth has one over the course of the book, and that actually turns into a plot point. However, I can't really give any specifics because spoilers. You'll have to read the book to find out. Let's see what we got. 66 years ago, a military coup begins its attempt to remove Juan Perón as president of Argentina. Who is more likely to be overthrown as the leader of their respective group? Your protagonist or antagonist? Well, that depends. My protagonists are pretty close-knit. They do on occasions argue, and it is likely that they will hold on to that, but but they do have a common set of principles. So unless their argument directly revolves around one of those principles, they're gonna stick together forever. The antagonists are somewhat more volatile, but again, I still have to say that close-knit ideological adherence is part of what characterizes them. Though the antagonists might be more likely to do so simply because there are more of them and bigger groups are more difficult to pacify. Where was I? 101 years ago, an anarchist terrorist attack kills 3 dozen on Wall Street while injuring hundreds more. Who is less concerned about collateral casualties, your protagonist or antagonist? Definitely the antagonists. They're theocratic fascists. That should tell me almost everything you need to know about them. 43 years ago, Muhammad Ali wins the heavyweight championship in the Louisiana Superdome. Who would win in a fistfight? Your protagonist or antagonist? Well, let's see. Most of my protagonists are 19 and close to the peak of physical fitness. The antagonists are a bit more. The antagonists are a bit more diverse, both in age range and in physical ability. So, if you were to take the most physically adept protagonist and match them up with the most physically adept antagonist, I think you'd have a pretty close fight, and it is likely the antagonist would win. If we're talking straight up fist fight, and again, simply the best, and again only the best from each side. But then again, my protagonists aren't fighting alone. So even though they have a massive organization opposing them, they also have a massive organization backing them. What's next? 53 years ago, 2 Soviet tortoises became the first Earth life forms to be launched into space, rather, on a mission to orbit the moon. What roles do animals play in your story? Truth be told, none really. Not even as early warnings. They're just. I don't think I even describe any animals being around. Not even strays. Even though it's basically urban fantasy. Like, I think the most they're described as is food. Yeah. Sorry to all the vegans out there. 77 years ago, the Octagon Conference is held in Quebec. I'll have to research what the Octagon Conference was. Does your protagonist group decide how a post-victory MC's world will look? Well, no. That is also one of the cruxes of my work. That the protagonists are just one cog in a larger machine, and the ways they relate to that machine becomes a part in the general story. Not necessarily in this first book, but moving forward throughout the series. 2 days ago was World Lymphoma Awareness Day. Okay. Does cancer touch anyone in your MC's world? None of their acquaintances, but several forms of cancer are recognized and are to some extent treatable within the MC's world, provided they're discovered early enough. That's also something to consider, both in real world and in at least my fiction. 21 years ago, Microsoft releases Windows Me. By me, do you mean the pronoun as in my person, or do you mean ME as in the abbreviation for Millennium Edition? Because I've heard of Millennium Edition, but you spelled it as the pronoun, so maybe clear that up a bit. Does your MC own anything that is absolutely useless? Ouch! Ouch! I don't even work for Microsoft, and damn, that is a serious burn right there. To actually answer the question, they kind of do. And ironically, it's the characters I actually thought of as being the most pragmatic, who actually have something with them that is actually useless. Marfa still keeps the coat of arms she had to design for her as part of a school assignment. Long story. And Elizabeth has a pair of stones that she received as a gift that she has brought with her to the university. These things aren't exactly useless, but I won't go into that. That is again up for readers to discover. Links in the description. Moving onwards. 67 years ago, the Soviet Air Force drops an atomic bomb on Totskoye, a Soviet village. How far will your antagonists go to keep their minions in order? Well, my antagonists are theocratic fascists, so they don't really need to keep their minions that much further in order. They've pretty much been thoroughly brainwashed before they formally became part of the association. So yeah. 269 years ago, the British realm skips September 3rd through 13 as it switches to the Gregorian calendar. Yeah, that's something that generally happened. Not just for the British, pretty much every country that adopted the Gregorian calendar from the previous Julian calendar had to skip 10 days. There was a massive argument about that too, so I'm not going to go into that. Does your MC have parcels of missing time? Well, they do have to sleep, I will say that much. And Marfa does get something happening to her, which also causes her to miss some time. But again, I won't go into that. Read the novel to find out. There are so many times I have to tell you to go to read the novel. I guess that's the point of this video, but still, it's kind of ridiculous even for me. 159 years ago, shortly before the Battle of Antietam, or however you're supposed to read that, Union soldiers discover a lost copy of Robert E. Lee's battle plans. Does your MC receive an unexpected gift which could lead to achieving their goals? Well, arguably that is what Elizabeth's stones that I mentioned a few questions back actually are. However, during the narrative, that is not something that happens. I wanted to keep my story as free of Deus Ex Machinas as possible, so that is part of it. Moving on. 263 years ago, the British defeat the French on the Plains of Abraham. Do your MCs fight battles that gain them nothing? Well, I would argue they don't really fight battles for any particular gain, other than to keep themselves alive. One could argue that any kind of injury they would sustain in those battles, even if it's just like a paper cut or something, would mean that they've gained nothing from it. But given that they still are alive, that might count as them actually having gained or rather kept their lives. So yeah, not sure what to make of that. They don't have any supplemental gains, so to speak. All their fighting is just for self-defense or for the defense of others. But they personally don't gain anything from their military engagement, so to speak. 4 days ago was the 100th hexadecimal day of the year. That's the 256th, for those of you who are unaware. How is time measured in your MC's world? Well, the same as in our world. We got seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years. I would have been very tempted to reinvent the wheel, but no. I decided I'd keep it basic. Keep it easy and easier to follow. 78 years ago, Nazi commando Otto Skorzeny, or however you're supposed to read that, rescues Mussolini from house arrest. How far will your antagonist go to save a colleague in their fight against your protagonist? Not much. That actually becomes a plot point. Well, okay, not really a plot point, but it does become relevant at some point during during the aftermath of a military engagement. Okay, and looks like we reached the last question Twitter will allow me to scroll to. 174 years ago, despite being outnumbered 2-1, U.S. General Winfield Scott begins his attack at Chapultepec, or Chapultepec, however you're supposed to read that. Which of your characters enjoys long odds? I'll say neither of them. They all want to win. Some of them might be eager to fight, but I'm not exactly sure whether or not eagerness to fight means eagerness to risk your life to that extent. I pretty much went with the assumption that they might enjoy being physically active, and they might enjoy the physical activity of a fight, or get themselves caught up in the necessity of it. But they wouldn't really. But I don't think any of the characters would really enjoy it, or enjoy having to overcome long odds. They might enjoy them. They might enjoy the fact that they did it once it's happened, but being confronted with it is not something that would really excite any of them, so to speak. Okay, still got 25 seconds left. Let's see if I can answer any of the ones I skipped over. 174 years ago, the adolescent Ninos Heroes, the adolescents I think, died defending a critical Mexican position at Chapultepec. I assume that's how you read that. How young is your character group? Okay, I started, so I'll finish. Well, they are all 19. They are all first year officer cadets at a military university. That is actually, I think, in the byline of the book, or rather, it can be read between the lines. Anyway, for more details, as I said, my book is out. Several of the most relevant links will be down in the description. And before you go ahead and actually order the book, I would like to thank you for your attention, regardless of how much of it you actually paid. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like, maybe share it wherever you think others will like it as well. If you have anything you'd like to add to this discussion, the comment section awaits your input. And if you have anything, and if you'd like to see when the next video comes out, then please subscribe. Maybe also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. Until next time, I am Jonathan Taylor, and this has been the Heir's Lair.